Carter.
And I'm Hannah.
And this week we'll be discussing the mysterious disappearance of a 23-year-old woman from a gas station in 1975, whose family has been left without answers for almost 50 years. This is the story of Nancy Perry Baird. Nancy Perry was a petite, fair-skinned young woman with strawberry blonde hair. Standing at only 5'3" tall and about 100 pounds. She was born in Provo, Utah, January 14, 1952, and attended Layton High School in Layton, Utah, before getting married at just 18 years old to another 18-year-old named Floyd D. Baird in 1970. The following year, in 1971, Nancy delivered a son. Around the winter-spring of 1974, Nancy and Floyd got divorced, and by 1975, she was raising her 4-year-old son alone with the help of her relatives in Utah, while Floyd had moved to Wyoming. She was working as a clerk at the Triangle Oil Company Fina gas station off Highway 89 in Layton when she mysteriously vanished from the convenience store. Nancy showed up for her 4th of July holiday shift at 3:00 p.m. and was scheduled to work until midnight. It was a Friday night, and police were out in full force for the holiday weekend. One police officer, Dave Anderson, actually stopped at the Fina gas station a little after 5 o'clock and chatted with Nancy during her shift and got a soda water before leaving a few minutes later to investigate a possible alcohol violation at the Shamrock gas station on the other side of Highway 89. About 5:30 p.m., only 15 to 20 minutes later, Nancy's manager, Bonnie Peck, arrived at the Fina station to pick up some soda water and found a line of customers waiting for a clerk. But Nancy was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Officer Anderson actually came back to the Fina station of his own accord because he noticed a green van and a couple of hippie-type individuals and wanted to check things out. Upon arrival, he encountered the store manager, Bonnie Peck, and learned that Nancy had somehow gone missing in the past 15-20 minutes since he was last there. Her car was still parked outside. Her purse was in the store untouched with $167 in cash, her car keys, house keys, and her headache medication still inside. I would also like to know, why is everybody drinking soda water? Like, Nancy's boss? The cop?
Yeah, lots of soda water.
Is it just soda?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, do they just mean soda? Like, back in the 70s, would they try and make it sound...
Like, is that how... You know how, like, in the South they say pop, and in the West they say soda? In Utah, do they say soda water?
That doesn't make any sense. Because soda water is something different, I thought.
I thought so, too. I thought it was just like the bubbly shit that you pour in cocktails.
That's really gross. the kind that you put in, like, Italian sodas.
Yeah. It, like, tastes salty if you drink it by itself.
But why would you drink that by itself?
Because you hate yourself, Hannah. That's the only explanation.
Also, don't you love Officer Dave Anderson? What a cop name, Dave Anderson.
He has a fucking mustache. I know, and he wears aviators, unironically.
No.
Unironically, he does, yes. That's the image I've created in my brain.
Mr. Anderson.
I can never unhear that. In a statement released by the Davis County Sheriff and East Layton Police Chief, it was reported there were no signs of a struggle or theft from the station. The next day, on Saturday, July 5th, the police deployed a helicopter to search both sides of the highway for about 3 hours, but the search was fruitless. A ground search of the mountains and roads of North Davis County went all day, but also turned up nothing suspicious. I feel like they waited too long, personally.
Well, you know what happened?
What?
What you see in the police report is essentially that she went missing around 5:30, right? There was about an hour, I think, where they were just kind of searching for her, like, on the grounds. Like, there were houses nearby, so they were, like, searching around the properties nearby. Asking around, talking to people, and then they actually interviewed the family that night.
Yeah.
And it was already kind of probably getting close to dark. I don't know. I guess it was the summertime, so it should have been really long days. But yeah, they didn't do the helicopter or anything until the next day. But they were up until like midnight interviewing family members and trying to figure out, because they weren't actually even certain that it was like
Foul play.
They didn't know if she'd been abducted or if she had been met with foul play. They just knew that she wasn't there, and they thought, well, maybe she walked off.
Without her purse? Without $167 in cash? Girl, I would never. By Monday, police gave up their land and air searches for Nancy and instead started to focus on interviewing her family, friends, and customers of the gas station. Police were able to obtain credit card receipts from the gas station during Nancy's shift and received the following eyewitness accounts. The first eyewitness is Denzel G. Williams. Denzel G. Williams was contacted by police because a credit card receipt indicated that he had purchased gasoline at the Fina station during Nancy's shift. According to Mr. Williams, he and his son and 9-year-old daughter went to the gas station to fill up a gas can and their tank before a trip to Park City the following morning. He estimates they were there between 5:10 and 5:15 p.m. Mr. Williams never went inside the service station, but his 9-year-old daughter went inside to buy a bottle of raspberry soda.
Okay, you want to know something funny about Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
I don't know this man, but just like reading his eyewitness statements, I feel like I know him. This guy apparently went to the service station with his son, which they don't say how old his son is, but his son is the older one, and then his younger child is the 9-year-old daughter. And apparently when police contacted him to get this account, like, hey, you were at the gas station, can you tell us what you saw? He didn't even remember having his daughter with him.
Oh.
They were like, was there anyone else with you? And he was just like, no.
Oh,
and then they like probed him more, and he's just like, oh, yeah. I think my daughter might have been there.
Oh my God.
Like, sir, you have 2 children.
Oh, the forgotten
How
child.
do you forget that one of them was with you? Obviously, he's playing favorites. He's like, this is my favorite son, Denzel Jr. I don't know what his name is, but like,
and then there's another one running around here somewhere. I don't know where she is.
that girl. Yeah, I don't know why I read that. I was just like, dude.
Maybe it really be like that sometimes when you're a tired parent. Like, I don't know where she was. Maybe she was here. Maybe she was at home. I don't know.
Okay, but could you imagine if they hadn't probed him more? Then we never would have gotten... His daughter has what I consider one of the most important eyewitness accounts from this entire investigation.
I would agree with you. And we'll tell you why right now. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
According to Mr. Williams' 9-year-old daughter, she only had 28 cents and the soda cost 29 cents, but Nancy let her have it anyway. She also described seeing 2 white men chatting with Nancy at the end of the counter who didn't appear to be buying anything. Both were young, perhaps in their early 20s, but one had shoulder-length brown hair and a short beard, while the other had dark brown/black hair down to the bottom of his ears and a short beard, about 1.5 inches long. That's interesting.
What's interesting?
That she saw those men chatting her up? 2 hippie men? Who has a beard?
Dave Anderson, I love his eyewitness account because he talks about how he comes back to the gas station purely because he sees a van and quote-unquote hippie type individuals, and he was like, absolutely not. And so he went back over to the gas station and was like, what's all this then?
The anti-hippie movement was absolutely fucking wild. Like, you want love and not war? Fuck you for that. Like, how dare you? Outside the gas station, Mr. Williams remembered seeing what looked like a bright yellow 1973 4-door Ford Maverick with a white stripe along the side. He also saw what he described as an older man, about 55 to 60 years old with a full head of gray hair, go into the exterior men's restroom and come back out while Mr. Williams was still pumping his gasoline. But the older man never went inside the station and wasn't seen again. After filling up his gas tank, he gave his credit card to his son, who went inside and handed the card to Nancy, and then they all left. According to Mr. Williams, it takes 4 to 5 minutes to drive to his house from the gas station, and he distinctly remembers being home before 5:30, which is when his brother came over. I feel like a bright yellow car is not the car I would choose to kidnap someone in, but that's just me. I'm not a professional or anything.
Yeah, I looked up. Have you ever seen a 1973 Ford Maverick?
Absolutely not.
Bomb-ass car. It is fucking rad, dude. I want one.
But it's a looker, right? Like, you wouldn't want to drive a looker to kidnap somebody.
Yeah, and it's relatively new. The car's only 2 years old, so someone's got like a nice, relatively new, bright yellow car.
Okay, and the second eyewitness is Mrs. Henry Heath. which is her name Henry, or is this the name of her husband? Because I hate that.
This is olden times, so this is definitely her husband.
Eyewitness number 2 is Mrs. Henry Heath. That's not her name, that's her husband's name. Mrs. Henry Heath reached out to the police because she had stopped by the Fina gas station during Nancy's shift, except she arrived about 5:30 p.m. and witnessed several people standing at the counter and there was no attendant. She remembered seeing a Caucasian man estimated to be in his late 20s with a medium brown, nicely trimmed hair, not over his ears, and short stubble, as though he hadn't shaved that day. He was buying what appeared to be a canned drink, not a soda water.
Let me just say that, and you'll see in just a second, that Mrs. Heath, she is insane, in a good way. This woman, I am not this observant. If you reached out to me and were like, hey, you were at this gas station, what did you see? I'd be like, I don't know. I'd be like, there were people? She's like, I know every single person that was in the gas station. I know exactly how their facial hair looked that day. I know what they were wearing, and I know what they were buying, and I can guess their ages, and I know exactly what time this all happened.
You know why? She felt unsafe for some reason. Because
you think so?
Okay, so I guess I relate to this because I do that when I feel a little bit unsafe. When something in me twinges and is something is weird about this, I pay super close attention. If I don't feel unsafe, if I'm generally just vibing in and out, I don't really pay attention. But when I feel a little bit off, something is weird and I don't know what it is, I pay super close attention to everyone around me. And I try to memorize what they're wearing. I don't know why. It's probably because I listen to too much true crime. But
no such thing. I know what you're saying, though, because actually, now that you say it, it's only whenever I feel like something is off, and I think, okay, if the police ask me about this later, I need to remember if I see someone who seems suspicious to me,
yeah,
I'll try and memorize what they look like. I guess I didn't think that that's what was happening. I thought maybe she was just really attentive and maybe somewhat of a busybody.
When I walk into a gas station and there's a lot of men in the gas station, I immediately pay attention. I immediately am on edge and I look around and I'm looking at them and I'm looking at what they look like and what they're wearing because I want to know their body language. I want to know if they're going to harass me. I want to be safe. So
you're kind of assessing the threat.
Exactly. So when I walk into a place, especially like a gas station, especially when there's a lot of men or even just a lone man, I'm watching because I feel a little bit on edge. Maybe nothing is going to happen and that's fine. That's great with me. But in case something is going to happen, I want to prevent it or stop it or get as much information as I can. Mrs. Heath also reportedly saw a Mexican man with 2 small boys who were also standing at the counter waiting to purchase some items. And then there was a Caucasian man who looked to be in his 50s, tall and thin, who was visibly irritated by the lack of customer service, who put a 6-pack of beer away and left instead of waiting. This is when Mrs. Heath decided to do her own searching for the missing clerk, looking around the store and checking the women's restroom. She noticed the restroom door was open, but there was no one inside. The Mexican man looked in the office area at the north end of the store but didn't find anyone. And then Mrs. Heath also reported seeing a yellow pickup truck with a shell camper and a young couple inside who arrived to get gas at this time. The young couple came into the store to pay for gas and decided to try tooting their car horn when they also couldn't locate a clerk. Why does everybody have yellow cars? Was that a popular color in the 70s?
I think so, yeah, actually. We had a big yellow van when we were kids.
Okay, so then maybe I was wrong. Maybe that cool Ford wasn't that out of place looking. Because it was yellow, because lots of people had yellow cars. After 5 to 7 minutes of waiting for a clerk, the store manager, Bonnie Peck, drove up. She was in a hurry, and she headed directly to the cash register. The Caucasian male customer then cracked a joke, asking Bonnie if she had stepped out to get a beer. This is when Bonnie became confused and asked, "Isn't she here?" referring to Nancy. Bonnie assisted all of the customers, and they left. This is when 3 people in a van pulled up asking directions to the sheriff's office, stating that one of their vehicles had been impounded. Mrs. Heath paid for her film and remembers arriving home 10 minutes before 6.
So I want to kind of summarize what just happened because it's not a lot, but it kind of is a lot at the same time because the little details really add up in this case. And the reason that it's gone unsolved for this long might be because we're missing details or the details that are here haven't been assessed appropriately. So if we combine eyewitness number 1 and eyewitness number 2, eyewitness number 1, Mr. Williams, he shows up with his daughter and his son to fill up their tank because they're going to be leaving town the next morning. They're going to Park City. So the people that he sees, Mr. Williams never actually goes in the store. he never even sees Nancy. He just sees kind of an older gentleman with gray hair who, it sounds like, just stopped at the gas station to use the bathroom and then left. And then he described seeing that yellow 1973 Ford Maverick with a white stripe on it. The most important account that we get from the Williams, I believe, is from his 9-year-old daughter. So she sees two kind of young, 20-ish looking Caucasian men with long hair and beards, and they are actually seen talking to Nancy. They're not there to buy anything, according to the daughter. She said that they were just kind of chatting like maybe they were friends. And then Mrs. Heath, she shows up only about 20 minutes later, and Nancy's gone. So there's something really critical that had to have happened between the time that the Williams left and Nancy was fine and she was talking to those two young men, and 20 minutes later when Mrs. Heath shows up and Nancy's gone. And she describes the different people who are in the gas station. In my opinion, none of them really seem that suspicious. It seems like they're just customers there to get, one guy's getting a 6-pack of beer, there's a dad with his 2 sons there that are buying a couple of items, and then Mrs. Heath is buying some film because she has some guests coming over. She's having like a 4th of July party with some friends. But I want to talk about the timeline. So according to Mrs. Heath, it takes about 6 minutes for her to get home from the gas station, meaning that she would have had to have been at the gas station from about 5:30 to 5:44. Based on all of the timelines and everyone's accounts, I think the person's who is the most inaccurate is actually the policeman, Officer Anderson. And he changes his timeline. Like if you look at the police reports versus what's written in the newspapers, he kind of changes. Like he's not really certain down to the exact minute. He kind of estimates. But the people who were at the gas station that day, Mrs. Heath and Mr. Williams, they're a little bit more certain. So from Mrs. Heath's account, we can gauge that she was there from 5:30 to 5:44. So for about 14 minutes, she was there. She was looking for Nancy. She was checking the bathroom. She was trying to find her. And in that time, the store manager, Bonnie Peck, shows up, and they realize, like, Nancy's gone. She's supposed to be there. She's supposed to be working until midnight. Where did she go? She left her purse. So all this happens in about 15 minutes. So when Officer Anderson said that he came back over to the gas station about 5:30, I think that was inaccurate. I think it was actually a lot closer to like 5:40 or 5:45. So I think he was off. She disappeared sometime between the Williams family leaving about 5:15 and Mrs. Heath getting there at 5:30. So that's a 15-minute window. And in my opinion, the most suspicious part, like if we're trying to deduce who may have abducted her, if she was abducted, I think would be those two young men that she was chatting with, who she seemed to know that the Williams daughter saw her talking to.
Are we suspicious of Officer Anderson at all?
So none of the eyewitness accounts were really published in the newspapers. This is all stuff, a lot of these details are from the case file. So when I only had read just what the media put out, it painted Officer Anderson as being the last person to see her alive, which we know now is not accurate because the Williams daughter saw other people in the convenience store when she was buying her soda.
Yeah.
For a while, though, I was super suspicious of Officer Anderson because I was like, it looks like he's the last person to see her alive, and he didn't report seeing anyone else in the convenience store, so it sounds like he was in there alone with her, and he was the last person to see her alive. Maybe he just took her, and there would be no one to question it.
And nobody else reported seeing the hippie van?
The hippie-type van that he describes seeing and decides to come back to the Fina gas station is, I think, the same van that Mrs. Heath describes seeing as she's on her way home. Because Mrs. Heath says that she's at the station for about 15 minutes, from 5:30 to 5:44, and then as she's on her way out, she says a van pulls up and is asking for directions to the sheriff's office, and that's when she leaves. So I don't think Officer Anderson saw any of these people. He didn't see the Mexican man, he didn't see Mrs. Heath, he didn't see the Caucasian guy buying a canned soda. I think he missed all of those people, and he showed up about 5:45 whenever that van pulled up.
Well, my eyes are still on you, Officer Anderson. This ain't over. Like, I'm still suspicious, but I guess we can continue on.
It is really crazy, though, that this woman goes missing. There was literally a cop there.
Like, across the street. Within eyesight.
He was there right before and he was there right after. And somebody had the audacity to kidnap I'm assuming that she was abducted. I don't know.
Assuming she was, like, there was a cop literally across the street. Like,
yeah.
If they had been watching her, and they probably were, like, they would have known that the cop was just there and went right across the street.
Maybe if someone abducted her, they were watching and they waited until they saw that the cop was distracted to make their move.
That's hella ballsy. Like,
yeah.
They didn't, like, wait for her to leave around midnight, or all of this is just super, super weird. Like, who impulsively kidnaps somebody?
Yeah, that's the other thing. So if we're going to talk about theories, because the FBI gets involved for a few weeks because they think that maybe this is a kidnapping, and they eventually leave, and they essentially aren't allowed / can't aid with the investigation because they can't actually prove that she was kidnapped, even though it kind of points that way. Because her car is still there, her house keys, her car keys, $167, and her medications are all still there left in her purse. So the only thing that makes sense is that somebody took her.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm there with you.
Can you think of anything else?
She ran away. And she wanted to make it look like she was kidnapped is the only other thing that honestly I first thought of when I read this case. Because I was like, she has motive to want to get away. Like, she's a single mom, and number one, a single mom in general. Number two, a layer deep, a single mom in the 70s. God, that sucks. Number three, a single mom in the 70s in Utah working at a gas station. Like, I know that shit was hard. That probably was not easy. And the father of her child lived in Wyoming. I guess she could have wanted to get away. She was at her limit.
She had just that money was her paycheck. Like, she had just barely cashed that.
If she really wanted to make it look convincing and she was smart, she would have left it.
But if I was being smart, I would have left $50. Not 167. Like, okay, so you're saying one viable theory is that she very intelligently
planned her runaway. She made it look like she was running. She made it look like she was kidnapped. She made it look like she vanished, but she was running away.
So maybe those guys who she was talking to were her accomplices.
Yeah, or maybe they were her ride. Maybe she was like hitchhiking.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to something. So that's a valid theory. So either she was abducted or she's staging her disappearance.
On July 7th, police collected a variety of Nancy's hairbrushes from her house and the gas station, as well as her birth control pills, which showed that Nancy hadn't taken any of her pills since April 7th.
So if a woman stops taking her birth control pills, in my experience, that either means, there's several different reasons, but the main two would be that either A, she wasn't having any sex and so she didn't feel like she needed to take them anymore because there's no chance of pregnancy, or B, she actually wanted to get pregnant, in which case I want to know if she has maybe a serious boyfriend at this time.
According to a police report from Officer Anderson dated July 8th, Nancy's parents provided 2 pictures of a boyfriend whose name police have currently redacted.
Ooh,
weird.
Okay. What if she was dating someone? Like, let's say that she had a serious boyfriend at this time, which it sounds like her parents knew that she was dating someone or some people. The possibility that she's pregnant adds another variable to this case, because if she's pregnant, that could be a serious cause of contention. So, like, if she stopped taking her birth control after April 7th, she could have very easily been in her first trimester of pregnancy when she disappeared. And this is all speculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the first trimester, so she may not have even had any major symptoms yet. She probably wouldn't have a bump, and her family may not have even known at this point if she had been pregnant. And if she was pregnant, it could be possible that her boyfriend either A, didn't want the baby, didn't want the responsibility, and therefore he suddenly has a motive to kill her, or B, maybe when she got pregnant, it turns out that the boyfriend finds out that it isn't his, and then the fact that maybe she's been dating other people or sleeping with other people is also motive for one of her boyfriends to kill her.
On July 8th, police spoke with Richard Marinoka from the employment office in Ogden, who stated that Nancy had actually come into the office in March because she was apparently very unhappy with her job and wanted a better one.
Honestly, I would probably hate working at a gas station too.
Yeah.
I don't even like going to the gas station as a customer.
Imagine having to be there all the time.
I always go into gas stations and I immediately feel sympathy for the clerk.
Yes, immediately. Like, I know gas station clerks get paid more than the average person working at, like, a customer service job, but I still think they don't get paid enough, to be honest.
It does make me wonder, though, like, I don't doubt that she hated this job. There's a million reasons why someone would hate working at a gas station, but I do wonder if there's an underlying reason, if maybe there was a repeat customer who was harassing her. Maybe she had a stalker, which isn't even an outlandish theory.
I think having a repeat customer who was harassing her is kind of a given. Like, whether or not that had anything to do with her disappearance, it's a given. It was happening. Like,
that's who I would look at, though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Because she, like, if you see pictures of her, she's gorgeous, right? Like,
Yeah.
she's this cute, petite redhead. Like, she probably had a million admirers. There's probably men who went in there, like the two guys that were in there right before she disappeared, who weren't even buying anything. They were just going there to chat her up, which maybe she was actually friends with them, or maybe they were just creeps, and she had to put on a nice face because that's what she's getting paid to do.
After speaking with the employment office, Officer Anderson then spoke with the mother of Monty Torres, the man who the neighbor saw mowing Nancy's lawn the previous month. And she stated that Monty hadn't been by to see her in about 3 months, and he was working in Pocatello, Idaho. When police showed the 9-year-old daughter of Mr. Williams, who saw the two men in the gas station on July 4th, some of the photos from Nancy's personal photo album, the girl positively ID'd Monty Torres as being one of the men she saw at the Phoenix station that afternoon. What the heck? When Torres...
I don't know her, but I trust her.
Yeah, same. I mean, that was like a defining moment in her little 9-year-old life. She only had 28 cents for a 29-cent soda, and the sweet clerk at the counter gave it to her anyway. Like, that, in my 9-year-old brain, I remember being 9, that would be like a core memory for me at that moment.
Yeah.
Probably because I was an anxious child as well, so I don't know if she was, but...
She was growing up in Utah. Of course she was anxious. Her father doesn't even know she exists.
You're right. Okay, so anyways, that was a core memory for her. I can say that pretty confidently now. When Torres was interviewed, police reported that he seemed quite jittery, but told them that he had been in Pocatello and went to Lava Hot Springs during the afternoon of July 4th. He provided witnesses that confirmed they saw him at 1 p.m. and again at 7 p.m. Which...
Okay, I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
So, first off, Monty Torres, I guess, is one of the romantic interests of Nancy Baird. And if you read the police case file, I think he's identified as a boyfriend, and he was seen, the neighbors saw him a month before this, so about June, mowing Nancy's lawn. But Monty's mom, who they reach out to, said that she hasn't seen her son in 3 months.
I mean, that tracks.
So this dude is like driving all the way from Pocatello to romance Nancy and mow her lawn. I imagine he's probably shirtless. I don't know.
You ever been down bad for somebody like that? Like, head over heels? Okay,
I think he's a simp.
Yes, exactly.
the very strong feeling that I get about Monty is if this man is mowing this woman's lawn and she's got like 8 other boyfriends, I think he might be trying a little too hard.
He's got it bad. 2 other male friends of Nancy whom police reportedly interviewed were a man named Reed Miller and someone whose name had been redacted. Okay. If their name is redacted, that is one of 2 things. Actually, it's just one thing in my brain, and he's a suspect.
Yeah. Well, we already know that. Sorry. I don't think I made it clear enough. So there's only one person in the case file whose name has been redacted. He's cited as being a boyfriend, one of her many boyfriends, and it's because he is still one of their main suspects, and he is still under investigation.
After 50 fucking years, is he even alive?
I don't know.
Like, it's time to put this 70-year-old man in a room, sit him down, and be like, what the fuck happened? Redacted. Like,
redacted.
Like, we know you fucking did it.
If the
Say
cops aren't
something.
going to do it, Kaylee and I are going to do it. Kaylee and I are going to play bad cop, bad cop. There is no good cop. It's just us breaking legs.
I will strap redacted to a chair and slap repeatedly.
Slap the redacted right out of him.
Like, motherfucking kills me that we're at this point where, like, obviously he's toward the end of his life. We're not going to get any information. What is stopping you from asking more for more? Like,
well, that's why the family, that's why we're doing this episode. The family is currently like, hey, this was mishandled.
Clearly.
It should still be open. You guys need to get it together.
Like, they're about to lose everything. This is about to be a cold case forever. Because the one person they think who did it, they can't fucking ask him because they're worried about not being able to charge him. Too late. He's like an almost 80-year-old man by now. Like, he's not going to prison. And if he is, he's not going to get justice. So, according to Deputy Ben Reichel, Reed Miller was in Jackson Hole during the holiday weekend. He stated that he and Nancy had known each other about 2.5 years since the winter of 1972, and they dated quite heavily at one point, but decided to cool their relationship since Miller didn't want to get married. He reportedly last saw her when they went out on a date on June 28th, the week before she went missing.
Okay, that is interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that are interesting about this. So she apparently was dating a man off and on named Reed Miller, and it says they've known each other for 2.5 years. She's only been married for like 5 years. She knew Reed while she was still married.
Yeah.
I don't know at what point they started dating. I don't know if there was an affair. I don't even know why she got divorced, right? I don't know if it matters. Maybe it does. But she's known Reed since she was still married.
Yeah.
And he used the phrases, they dated quite heavily, which...
Weird phrasing, but okay. I get
Sounds like he's trying to say they were hot and heavy. And then he says that they needed to cool their relationship. So something was steamy, okay?
Yeah.
That's the vibe I'm getting from Reed, is that they were hot and heavy, things were steamy, and then apparently she wanted to get married, and it sounds like he didn't. And so part of me hates Reed a little bit because it sounds like, well... No, think about it. So a week before she goes missing, he takes her out on a date. Like, he's toying with her.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like, he knows how much she likes him, but he doesn't want to commit.
Well, maybe she felt the same. Maybe she didn't really want to marry him at that point either.
Maybe, but then on top of this, I don't know how hot and heavy they've been recently, but she's off of her birth control pills. Do you think it's just a coincidence that they went out a week ago, or maybe she wanted to meet with him to tell him something?
That is very possible. That is extremely possible. But I have friends who, like, they're still buddy-buddy with guys they used to date really seriously. And they still, like, make out every now and again.
No!
Yeah. I said make out, and I immediately thought, like, oh my God, is this high school? They still, like, they're still, like, together, but they're not. They're just friends with benefits at the time. So it's very possible that that's all they were, is friends with benefits.
So she was dating Reed, but also he's also not the man whose name is redacted. So by my count, she's actively dating 3 to 4 different men right now, including there's an interview with her ex-husband Floyd, who said that they actually had a very good relationship after they got divorced, and he would still take her out on dates.
Wait. Nancy's ex-husband?
Yeah, so he said that after they got divorced, their relationship was better.
Weird.
So Floyd still takes her out occasionally. I don't know how often that is. So Floyd, you've got Floyd, Reed, Monty, and redacted. So you've got 4 different men who are actively, like, kind of in relationship / going out with her at the time that she disappears, which is a lot of potential murderers.
Yeah. What the heck?
Especially, I don't know if they knew about each other.
Probably not.
What if they didn't know about each other?
I mean, they were all really spread out, too.
Like, they lived in different places?
Yeah, like...
So you've got a few different variables. Like, you've got 4 different men who all kind of have motive, assuming that any of them has any kind of a jealous bone in their body. And you have her off of her birth control pills, which, if she was pregnant, that's also leading into a very solid motive of why someone might be very mad at her.
In total, Nancy's case file lists 9 different men labeled boyfriend to signify some sort of past or recent romantic involvement. Only one of Nancy's boyfriends has had his name redacted, and all we know about him is that police tried contacting him several times, but he didn't answer. They were able to get a hold of his cousin, who stated that this man had been married but recently divorced in just the last month, but he and his ex-wife were considering a reconciliation. Police spoke with this man's aunt, a Mrs. Frank Olson, who stated that she didn't associate with her brother or his family. This man reportedly worked in a warehouse, and his foreman stated that he had left for vacation on July 2nd and was supposedly going to be visiting his parents in Phoenix and wouldn't be back to work until the 12th or 13th. This is mad suspicious. Crazy.
I mean, that's why his name is redacted.
Yes.
So it is mad suspicious because there's a lot of things going on. One, he's not answering phone calls from the police.
I didn't know you could just, like, avoid them at all costs. Like, they'll just leave you alone if you don't want to talk to them?
Well, everyone else they got back from their 4th of July vacations and they all cooperated with the police. They're kind of like, yeah, I'll tell you what I know. This guy, though, he's like, absolutely not. I'm not returning these phone calls. So they can't get a hold of him. So they try and locate his family members, and the closest thing they can get is a cousin who gives us some interesting information, which is that this man is actually basically married. So Nancy's boyfriend is married and has only recently gotten a divorce in the last month. So I'm wondering if maybe his relationship with Nancy is one of the causes of the divorce.
Which would make a potential pregnancy even more problematic.
If this guy is trying to reconcile with his wife / ex-wife and his mistress or girlfriend is pregnant, then hella motive.
Yep.
Women have been killed for a lot less.
A lot less.
And then they get a hold of his aunt and she's like, I don't even talk to that family, which good for her.
Like, what'd they do? Damn.
Yeah. She's like, I don't associate with my brother or his stupid children. And then on top of that, there's so much packed into this. His boss says that he has clocked out for a very long vacation. It's like 10 days.
Very weird.
Which, I don't know about you, but when I take a vacation for 4th of July, it's like maybe a day or two, maybe a weekend. But this guy supposedly left on the 2nd and said he wouldn't be back until the 12th or 13th, which is a long time. And that's a long time to maybe dispose of a body if you needed to.
Maybe it's his first time murdering somebody, so he needed a few weeks to get everything in order.
Okay, but here's my biggest issue. In my mind, there's no way that if she was abducted, that it was planned.
Explain.
Because she was taken in the middle of the day during a high traffic time from her job. And she was supposed to work until midnight. Let's say that you were planning on abducting her, why wouldn't you wait until 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night when there's fewer people stopping at the gas station, there's fewer people around, and you have darkness to aid you and cover your tracks?
Maybe she got in the car willingly. Maybe he was like, hey, can we talk? And she got in the car and he sped off.
But if you were going to plan that, why wouldn't you do it for later when there's no customers around?
I don't know.
Like, let's say that I'm an evil man and I want to kill my pregnant girlfriend.
Let's just say. Picture this.
Hypothetically, yes. I've impregnated this woman. Yeah. Gross. I hate the word impregnate.
Same.
Just so vile.
0 out of 10.
If I knew that she was working from 3 until midnight, I would not show up at 5:30. That's literally rush hour on a holiday weekend. Everyone is going to be fueling up their tank. And there was tons of people.
Or maybe that's the best time.
No.
I mean, think about, the first thing I think of is Pauline in our episode.
The bystander effect?
Yes. Like, people aren't paying attention during the day because you feel relatively safe during the day. Like, and everyone is trying to get something done. They're trying to do their thing. It's a holiday. They're just trying to get what they need and get out of there as fast as they can because they're trying to get to do their own parties and their own things and their own families. But when it's late at night, people are a little bit more wary of the situation. They know that sketchy things happen after dark. So maybe they're a little bit more alert, even though there's less people. Or maybe it literally was, he wasn't planning on doing this, or he was, but maybe later, but he just decided it's now or never. Like, he got a streak of bravery and decided to do it.
I feel like if you had to choose as a perpetrator between hoping that the bystander effect works and that nobody intervenes, or you have the benefit of just going at night when there's fewer witnesses and there's darkness to help you, 10 times out of 10, I would choose to go later at night and hope that there's no witnesses. But we know that there weren't any signs of a struggle or any kind of theft from the store. Part of me wonders if maybe one of those, like, let's say that it was Monty. Let's say Monty goes in there with one of his buddies. He goes to chat up Nancy. And then he says, hey, I need to talk to you about something serious. Can you, like, take your cigarette break real fast? So they go out to the side of the building where his car is waiting. She goes to take her 10-minute cigarette or coffee break or whatever she's allowed legally, I don't know. And the Williams have already paid for their gas. the daughter has already paid for her soda. Maybe there's no one else in there. And so she's like, yeah, now's a good time. What do you want to talk about? They go out to the side of the building and there's no one around. And she either gets in his car willingly for some reason because he's like, hey, can we chat? Can you just sit in the front seat for a second? And then he drives off with her, clubs her. I don't know. That's where my mind is going to. I don't think that she was abducted from inside the store because I feel like then there would be like...
I absolutely agree.
There'd be stuff scattered around. She would probably kick, or there's people around more likely to be seen, but maybe someone coerced her to get outside close to their car. One theory, maybe if it was a stranger, they said, hey lady, the pump's not working. Can you come out here and help me?
Yeah.
Something like that, where I think somebody got her outside close to their car and then they threw her in.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where my mind is going. That's one of my main theories.
I agree. Deputy Bert Holbrook, who was tasked with interviewing Nancy's ex-husband, Floyd, or D. Baird, was told that D had been working in Rexburg, Idaho on an electrical job, but that he'd been in the Jackson Hole area since Thursday. He and his friend Rick Thomas were planning to spend their holiday river running, or kayaking, I guess.
I don't know. Do you know what is river running?
I have no idea.
I assume it just means that they're...
Is that like whitewater rafting?
I want to say that they're just playing at the river, but grown men probably don't say that. They're like, we're river running. Like, just say you want to splash in the water, dude.
Like, damn, just be human. Just call it for what it is. Come on.
Me and Rick are going to go play at the river. I think that's what they were doing.
No, I 100% believe that. Humans make up weird names for things that we all do since we're children. We're basically actually, just giant children.
I should Google it just to see if it's like an actual phrase. It might be river running.
I'm going to die if it's just playing in the water. Sounds like something men just made up, but okay.
Apparently, there's like, it is a phrase. Hold on.
But what is it?
I see a lot of pictures of kayaking.
Is it like whitewater kayaking? Or is it just like you put a kayak out in the river or the lake and you just go crazy? Paddle around, play in the water.
These all look like pictures of people kayaking.
Okay. They're just kayaking. They're just like paddleboarding. Because there's river
running and then there's whitewater river running. I don't know why they wouldn't just say kayaking.
Because kayaking is feminine coded.
Is it?
I imagine. Because it's much more peaceful.
Oh, so they're like, we have to establish that we're not just peacefully
playing in the water. We are running in the river.
100% that's what happened.
I don't know. Anyways, this is important. Police also investigated alleged information that Nancy had attempted suicide in the past and confirmed it to be true.
Yes. So I don't have a ton of information about her past attempted suicides, except that when she went missing, one of the descriptors that they have for her body, like if she is found, is that she does have scars on the insides of both of her wrists.
Lastly, when investigators searched Nancy's house, they found a telephone number written down on a pad of paper near the phone in her bedroom that belonged to a female relative in Lakewood, Colorado. When police contacted the relative, the woman said she hadn't had any contact with Nancy for 2.5 years.
Sorry, that's really weird.
Yeah, right? Like, random. There was also the mystery of some unpaid gasoline from the station pumps. Apparently, there was $10 worth of unpaid gasoline from one of the pumps during Nancy's shift.
It could be anything. It could be just someone that was like, hey, the attendant's not here, so I'm just gonna...
free gas.
Just take it, I guess. You know, they were probably peeved. It could have been that guy who was waiting around to pay for his beer, and when she wasn't there, he just sped off. We have no idea if the unpaid $10 worth of gasoline belonged to the person who maybe abducted her, or if it was just someone who was peeved, or someone who just straight up stole it. But here's a bit of information that might help. So, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average price of gasoline at this time in 1975 was 57 cents per gallon.
God damn! Sorry,
right.
Continue.
It's like 10 times that now.
Oh my God.
So if you pay $10, that would equal between 17 and 18 gallons of gas, which the average car tank usually is between 15 and 20. So whoever stole this $10 of gasoline, it was essentially a full tank's worth. So whoever took it is probably someone who actually genuinely, in my opinion, stopped at the gas station to fill up their tank.
Maybe. Okay, but right here is where things start to go a little bit off the rails.
Not that they weren't already off the rails.
Now we're fully off. We've been veering that way, and now we're off completely.
Okay.
So in the back of their minds, locals and law enforcement couldn't help but speculate that Nancy's disappearance may be related to the recent attempted abduction of 18-year-old Carol DeRanche from Murray, Utah, or the disappearance of 17-year-old Debbie Kent, a Viewmont High School senior, both on November 8th, 1974. Okay, again with the Debbie. Don't be named Debbie. You'll get abducted.
There's always a Debbie.
There's always a Debbie. Officials also reported that the Fina fuel station where Nancy worked was run by the Triangle Oil Company, a firm in which Dean Kent, the father of 17-year-old missing high school girl student Debbie Kent, was an officer.
That just seems a little bit like a conspiracy theory, in my opinion. So I guess police are trying to see if maybe Nancy's disappearance is connected to a wider web of women who have been recently abducted or gone missing. So Carol DeRanche, who's 18 years old, she gets abducted, but she escapes her captor. And then Debbie Kent just mysteriously goes missing from the parking lot of her high school. I can't remember what time it is, but it's in the evening. I think she was at some sort of a concert or event. So it's at night. I think it's darker. And the way that they link Nancy to Debbie is that the gas station where Nancy worked, I guess one of the officers of the Triangle Oil Company was Debbie Kent's father. But I feel like that's just kind of what happens when you live in close proximity to people, that there's going to be connections like that.
Yeah, that seems inconsequential. Like that.
They're grasping at straws, but
yeah.
also they're probably looking for anything they can.
It would be an inside job, is what they're insinuating, if that meant
it sounds
anything
like
at
they're
all.
insinuating that people are targeting employees and people connected to the Triangle Oil Company.
Which, that could get into like a different crazy conspiracy theory, but that's not what's happening. At least not according to us. And we're the real professionals. Not to toot our own horns or anything.
We're like going through the police case file like, this is all wrong.
These fucking idiots. Who paid these morons to do this? But anyways. Okay.
We did, unfortunately.
Well, I didn't. I wasn't alive, so I didn't pay taxes for that. Okay, so Nancy's case basically comes to a complete standstill after police exhaust all of their leads and didn't find any viable suspects. Until at the end of August, almost 2 months after her disappearance, 2 women from East Layton were at a grocery store in Castle Rock, Colorado, and thought they saw Nancy in one of the store aisles.
Okay, this is interesting because Castle Rock, Colorado, where these 2 women from Nancy's town see her, they think they see Nancy at this grocery store in Castle Rock. Castle Rock is only 30 minutes drive away from Lakewood, Colorado, which is where that female relative of Nancy's lives, whose phone number was written down on the pad of paper next to her bed.
Oh my God. Also, can we just talk about how, like, police didn't really push into this at all? Like, it totally would have been easy for her to run away to Lakewood. They called the redacted name of that boy who they thought might have been a suspect.
That boy.
And he just didn't answer his phone. They're like, damn, that sucks. I guess we'll move on. And then they find the number of Nancy's relative in Lakewood, Colorado, and they call her up and she's like, I haven't spoken to Nancy in 2.5 years. And they're like, damn, that sucks. I guess it's not her. Like, they're just like not doing anything. They're not like...
I like to assume that there's just more that they haven't included in their reports.
I sure hope so.
If that's actually what's happening and they're like, well, he didn't answer his phone, so I guess we'll just clear him, I guess.
Like, that's my new method if I ever get accused of a crime. I'm just not going to answer my phone. I'm just never going to be home.
Yeah, because here's another conspiracy theory. What if the relative was lying? What if Nancy ran away to live with a relative and they called her up and she's like, I haven't seen Nancy in 2.5 years.
That's what I'm saying. That's one of the things that I'm really considering right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, and also I wonder if the 2 women, her face was probably all over the newspapers and maybe on TV.
How long ago did they think they saw Nancy? Was it like a couple years after? Let me read back.
It's only 2 months.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is only 2 months after Nancy officially goes missing. It's possible that it really wasn't Nancy. It was just somebody that really looked like her. And when it's like in the forefront of your brain like that.
It would take a lot for me to call the police if I saw someone. Like, they would have to really look like the person and for me to be like, okay, I gotta call the police. But
yeah,
that's
but
just me.
You're also not trigger happy about calling the cops.
No, I try to avoid calling the cops at all costs.
Yeah, but some people aren't like that, so.
There's no further information. This is never brought up again that I can see. There's no report in the police report that says like, hey, we followed up on this and we came to a dead end.
They're like, damn, that's crazy.
I haven't seen any kind of report of a follow-up. There probably was one, but I'm assuming that it did not go anywhere and that it was not a positive ID.
I guess not. Okay, this is where the story right here makes me angry, and we'll discuss this later, but it wasn't until October of 1975 that police finally had a strong suspect in Nancy's case. Carol DeRanch, a 19-year-old woman who had escaped an attempted kidnapping in Murray, Utah the year before, identified her abductor in a police lineup as a 28-year-old man named Ted Bundy. What's more, according to Carol DeRanch, her abductor had used handcuffs on her, and there was a set of handcuff keys found in the parking lot of Viewmont High School where missing 17-year-old Debbie Kent had disappeared from.
There's obviously very strong links between whoever abducted Carol DeRanch and whoever caused the disappearance or the disappearance of Debbie Kent, because Carol DeRanch, he used handcuffs on her, and Debbie Kent, they found handcuff keys in the parking lot that I guess must have gotten dropped during a struggle or something. But I don't know why they're linking Nancy to these people except geographical location. Like, they lived relatively nearby. Murray's not that close to Layton. It's like 30, 35, 40 minutes.
The reason this makes me angry is because it feels like a cop-out. Like, the police are like, that must be it. This guy has been kidnapping women, and we haven't looked into anything seriously. It would be a nice closed case. And so it would be really easy to just say, this guy's kidnapping women, so it must be the same thing. Like, they didn't really look into it enough. God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ted Bundy's girlfriend, who was a native of Utah, called authorities in Seattle in late 1974, around the time of Carol and Debbie's abductions, and told them that she thought her boyfriend was responsible for the string of missing women in Utah, which coincided perfectly with his departure from Washington. Authorities in Seattle were interested enough to send a color snapshot of Bundy to Salt Lake County detectives, but sheriff's officers were too busy on other cases and never followed up on the lead. How many women died because they just decided not to look into it? That pisses me off so bad.
They were too busy.
Too busy on what? Property crimes? Oh my fucking God. People are dying. Like, get your shit together. In early 1975, Ted Bundy's girlfriend Liz tried again, this time calling the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office directly with her theory. According to Liz, the detective told her that Bundy had already been excluded as a suspect. Detective Pete Hayward denies this allegation, but clearly they didn't look into it because Ted Bundy was still fucking killing people, so.
Her account is that she called and they said, oh, no, sorry, we've already looked into him and he's been excluded. But when she said that out loud and said, hey, I contacted the police and they said that he'd already been excluded, they backtracked and were like, we never said that.
Of course.
But I think that was after he was caught that they're like,
oh my God.
This looks bad.
Yeah, it does look bad.
Because it is bad.
Because it is. It wasn't until August 16th, 1975, when Ted Bundy sped past a parked Utah Highway Patrol officer at 2:30 in the morning, and police found a pair of handcuffs, an ice pick, a crowbar, a ski mask, a pair of pantyhose with an eye and mouth holes, a mallet, and 20 feet of chain, that authorities started taking Bundy seriously as a suspect. Oh my God.
You want to know something interesting? So, Detective Pete, that we were just slandering, who was like gaslighting Liz. It's Pete's brother who is the one who eventually captures Ted Bundy.
I wish you could see my face right now. I am disappointed but never surprised.
Ted Bundy is definitely one suspicious person to consider in Nancy's case. Like, they didn't pull this out of thin air. The fact that police tied Ted Bundy to Nancy's disappearance, I think, is valid because she does fit kind of the age range, the rough geographic location in Utah at this time that he's abducting people. She doesn't really fit his type. So the two problems that I have with the theory that Ted Bundy is responsible for Nancy's disappearance is, one, Ted Bundy was known to target dark-haired women. Most of his victims were dark-haired. He had a type that some theorized looked a lot like his ex-girlfriend, Diane Edwards. And obviously Nancy had strawberry blonde/red hair. Ted Bundy himself said that he targeted women that he found attractive, that was one of the underlying reasons that he targeted them. And not to say that he didn't think that blondes or redheads were attractive, but it seems like he obviously had a type that he liked dark-haired women more. And number two, and this could be completely unrelated, but if we were going with the theory that the $10 worth of gasoline that was stolen from the pumps belonged to the person who abducted Nancy, Ted Bundy's car was a 1968 Volkswagen, and it only had a 10-gallon gas tank, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for him to buy 17 or 18 gallons worth of gas.
And it was a Bug, right? It was a Volkswagen Bug, which makes it kind of a distinct-looking car. People would probably remember it.
And nobody saw his Bug. Like, there were plenty of eyewitnesses who described seeing various cars at the gas station that day. Nobody reported seeing Ted Bundy. He doesn't fit the description of any of the people that were seen at the gas station that day, and nobody described seeing his car.
And another thing, there were suspicious people surrounding Nancy already, like, in her life. Like, that's the biggest thing that they're overlooking. There were suspicious people. Like, it's a cop-out to just say, like, oh, Ted Bundy probably did it, even though we have absolutely no way to connect them except for not even circumstance, just by imagination. Really, because that's the only way they're connected. These other people who are suspicious in Nancy's case are connected by more than just imagination, and we're just gonna label Ted Bundy as the perpetrator just because it makes sense and it's easy.
And if Ted Bundy had abducted her from the gas station, that'd be different from his regular MO. Like, he's never done something like that before. He's never abducted a woman from a gas station like that before.
According to us, it wasn't Ted Bundy who did this. Anyways, we'll tell you the rest of the story now. So the evening before Ted Bundy's execution in January 1989, he confessed to abducting 17-year-old Debbie Kent from Viewmont High School and 7 other women and girls in Utah, 3 of whom he didn't identify. According to biographers Stephen Michaud and Hugh Ainsworth, who interviewed Bundy about his life and published a book in 1983 entitled The Only Living Witness, Bundy told them he didn't kill Nancy Baird.
So here's where we should talk about some of our theories are and kind of hash those out.
Okay.
How do you feel about the Ted Bundy theory?
I think the Ted Bundy theory is honestly lazy.
Yeah, to me, it seems like Ted Bundy aside, she already had so much going on in her life that could have set her up for disaster. She had statistically, the most likely person to harm her or to have done this is going to be an intimate male partner. And we see that the police were able to name 9 different men that she had either in the past or recently been in a romantic relationship with, 4 of which were all at the same time. And we don't know if they knew about each other. We don't know if any of them had a jealous bone in their body, maybe. And then on top of that, we have the Williams girl saying that the man she saw that day talking to Nancy 15 minutes before she was reported missing looked like Monty Torres.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like there's a lot of solid reasons to pursue all of these men that she was seeing, and those are the people that I would want to look at first and rule out. And obviously one of her boyfriends, his name has been redacted, and the police, I think 50 years later, are now thinking like it probably wasn't Ted Bundy. It was probably one of these men that was close to her and had more of a motive to kill her.
Yep.
Also, it makes more sense, like we discussed earlier, that if she went willingly with someone, maybe she didn't run away, but let's say that she just left the store to go talk to someone outside. That makes more sense that maybe she went with someone just for a brief chat outside because it's someone that she knows, it's someone that she's been dating, it's someone that she sees regularly who's a friend or whatnot. That would explain why the place wasn't robbed. Her purse wasn't taken. Her car wasn't gone. There was no sign of a struggle because she probably knew the person that killed her, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. If she was killed, it was somebody she knew. And that is the hill that I'm going to die on. I don't think it's impossible that she ran away, but after reading the whole story, I'm more inclined to think that she didn't. I don't think she ran away.
So the family actually, in those 50 years since it happened, they've talked to 2 different psychics.
Interesting.
According to the psychics, she was killed very soon after she disappeared, and that she was taken and discarded in a wooded area north of where she disappeared from.
Okay.
Which is very specific, and it'd be really weird for two different psychics who don't know each other years apart to say something along those lines.
Yeah, that is weird.
But north would point toward Idaho.
Pocatello?
Which is where our buddy Monty Torres lived. It's where her ex-husband was also working in Rexburg on an electrical job at the time.
Well, as of today, in 2022, Nancy Perry Baird has never been found, and her family still wants answers. They don't believe Ted Bundy was involved, and they've been waiting almost 50 years to know what happened. So anyone with information about the case is asked to call the Davis County Sheriff's Office at 801-451-4150. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Crime Soup Podcast. Be sure to find us on social media and let us know your thoughts on this case. You can find us on TikTok at Crime Soup Podcast and on Instagram and Twitter at crime_soup. We also have a website, crimesouppodcast.com, where you can listen to all of our episodes and buy your very own Crime Soup merch. It's awesome. As always, we'll see you next Tuesday. Stay safe and bon appetit.